What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube channel. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to tap in, support by smashing that subscribe button. It's the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with your host. I am one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. Eagles season comes to an end with a 32-9 loss in the wildcard round to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Changes are most likely coming. Change is needed. Nick Sirianni to meet with owner Jeffrey Lurie and lay out his plan to help move the Eagles forward. We'll see if Nick Sirianni still has a job or not, but Scotty and I are going to break down this disaster of a football game, what went wrong over the last 7 to 8 weeks of this Eagles season from a 10-1 start, and what needs to change. Who are the biggest culprits of these issues, man? But happy Thursday, right? And let's get to it. Is it Thursday? Sure. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Happy Thursday, man. I can't say I'm happy to be here given the situation that we're in. But yeah, we have to break it down. We have to kind of, end the season and move on from this team. But I guess, like I said, man, I was excited going into that game, just to start the show here. But I was excited going into that game for a multitude of reasons. One of them being is that we would find out who the team really is. And, it was relieving at the end of the day to have the season end at this point. Like I was cool with it ending. I was tired of the misery from the last 7 to 8 weeks. It was honestly just more draining than it was fun to watch the team, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. And when you see a team just come out and underperform the way they did the last, 7, 8, however many weeks that was mixed in there, it becomes unenjoyable, man. It becomes unenjoyable to be a fan. It becomes, constant bickering about, whose fault it is, who to blame. And so to that point, man, I'm quite honestly happy to be moving on after today. Obviously, we'll have the whole off season to figure out what the next moves are for the Eagles, but I'm excited to move on to a team that, who knows, they'll probably end up letting us down somewhere down the road as well. But they look really good right now in the Sixers, and so I'm ready to put my focus into a positive light in Philadelphia right now. But it is relieving to move on from this Eagles team and see what they're going to do to change the tide here. So here we are, man. Yeah. We have to break
I think that's a great place to start, right? The first thing I can say here is that I agree with you. I'm happy it's over. I'm relieved that it's over. No more false hope, false positivity, thinking that this 2022 Eagles offense is going to somehow walk back through the door without Shane Steichen and figure things out on any given week and propel us to a run, and figuring out that this defense can get a couple steps. No, it's over. Like we said to start, changes are coming. What changes that will be, we'll discuss throughout the course of the show and obviously throughout the course of the offseason. But it's necessary, man. Heads are going to roll, and they should. Nick Sirianni is obviously going to be a huge part of our discussion here in a little bit. But let's just start with this game. This was a disaster from start to finish. I can even take you to the coin toss. I hated Nick Sirianni's decision to defer. I know that's what he's essentially done 95% of the time since he's become the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. With the way that this defense had been playing on the road, you need some momentum. The way this offense has been rolling, I would have went out and tried to let the offense set the tone. Instead, you let Baker Mayfield and the boys go right down the field. Yes, you held them to 3. Congrats. It sucked the energy right out of the building for the Philadelphia Eagles, seeing how easy and simple it really was for Tampa Bay to march down the field on this Eagles defense. Then you get the ball. The first 2 plays of the game go to DeAndre Swift, Scotty. We're all cheering. There you go. They're following the blueprint from week 3. He picks up 11, 12, 13 yards on those 2 carries, picks up a first down. They didn't go back to him for possessions. Plural. DeAndre Swift did not get the ball for multiple drives following those 2 carries, man. I don't understand it. Here's my number 1 takeaway. Matt Patricia and Sean Desai are gone. This defense is an utter disaster. This defense looked like they quit. James Bradbury is stealing money from the Philadelphia Eagles organization and Jeffrey Lurie. We could talk about the double-digit missed tackles that some led to big plays and touchdowns. We could talk about our corners running into each other over the middle of the field. We could talk about the miscommunication. We could talk about all of it. But at the end of the day, this offense was the number 1 problem to me on Monday night. You scored 9 points. 9. Scotty, I get it. You're missing A.J. Brown. They did exactly what they cannot afford to do. In a playoff game, you abandon the run after the first 2 plays of the goddamn game. Abandon it. Your quarterback has 2 fingers taped, missing his number 1 option. He threw the ball 35 times. You ran the ball 14 times. And by the way, through basically 3 quarters, it was a 1-possession game. It wasn't 32-9 the entire game where they had to drop back and throw the ball consistently. It was a 7-point game for most of it. And then you did what we all questioned if you could adjust. They had no answers for a blitz. That's the story of the game. The Philadelphia Eagles had no answers for a blitz. They were going empty set, just Jalen back there. They weren't sliding protections. He's not adjusting anything at the line. Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni are running curl routes against man coverage. They're running go routes in and out of an empty set off of a blitz. They're doing nothing different. They did nothing different. They didn't adjust. They didn't come in with a different game plan. Everybody knew what Todd Bowles was going to do to them. That had to be the most fun any defensive lineman or linebacker has ever had this entire season. Just run. Just try to get after Jalen Hurts. That's it. That's your only job. And the Eagles had no answer for it, man. This was an absolute disgrace of an offensive coaching performance as I've ever seen one.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there, man. There was, points throughout the game. Now, of course, the defense, they had their fair share of disgusting showings, missed tackles, like you said. But there was a point in the game where they got consecutive stops in a row, right? And they were able to get the Bucs off the field and get the ball back for their offense. And the offense just kept running into a brick wall. And I think that speaks to Nick Sirianni the most, man. This is a team that is supposed to be led by an offensive-minded coach. He's supposed to be, a guy that came from Indianapolis, a guy that was good at play design, good at play calling, play scheming. And you come out here and you get basically out-schemed. Now, mind you, the Todd Bowles, the head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, defensive-minded coach, so he's going to have a good game plan for their defense. Their defense has always been pretty sturdy. But, I mean, just the malpractice of not knowing how to address a blitz constantly since – I mean, it was obvious against the Giants, but I think throughout the season you saw it in scenarios, but then in the second half of the season, teams started to dial in specifically with blitzing, right? You saw it from the Cardinals, you saw it from the Giants, and then it leaked into the postseason. And it just speaks to the lack of adjustments by Sirianni, by Brian Johnson, by Jalen Hurts at the line as well. But I would even argue this, man, the most disappointing part of it all, and obviously we're going to have a conversation about Jalen Hurts as far as like what he contributed to this game, but the most disappointing part of it all for me is that offensive line, man. And just the weakness of the offensive line. Like they just look like a shell of themselves. You talk
Yeah.
about running the football, man. It's like you run the football. You should be able to run the football when you have an offensive line the caliber of the Philadelphia Eagles against any front seven, right? Like against any team. It could be the best rushing defense in the NFL. And the Eagles should still be able to run the football. The Eagles should still be able to pass protect for Jalen Hurts. And for me to sit back and just see a mixture of Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson and, Jordan Mailata.
I mean, Cam Jurgens was a mess. Cam Jurgens was a disaster.
Yeah, he was a mess. Landon Dickerson, you could throw all five, but the leaders of this offensive line, Jason Kelce, in the middle of that offensive line.
Things you're not used to seeing.
Yeah, just getting pummeled, man. Like, I get it. They're bringing more guys and the offensive line can handle at times. But that's also Jason Kelce. That's also Lane Johnson. That's these guys' responsibility as well as Jalen Hurts.
Looking
to
confused.
call out what they're seeing at the line. And so when I just see this team falling apart together as a unit, it was really demoralizing. And that's what I meant where it brought you to the point of relief that this season is over and that we can just start over next season, because that's honestly what we needed. We needed a fresh start. Like, we needed the season to end and then, like, start over in a month for us to get the shit together that they needed to get together, because they were lost, man. The last 7 weeks of this season, it wasn't just this game was a culmination of everything that we saw throughout the regular season as far as, like, what we hated, right? Blitz, abandoning the run. Then on the other side of the ball, missed tackles, right? Blown coverages, no pressure on the quarterback, corners 10 yards off the line. Like, it was a culmination of everything. And then the sweetest touch of it all, Dylan, is that the Buccaneers would have blown us out very early in this game if they just caught the ball.
Yep.
And that's a microcosm of the entire season, because you go back to the Chiefs game, if Valdez-Scantling just catches the ball, right? You go to who was the other games? I'm slipping here, but you get my point. There were several games.
There's a lot in there where Dallas
doesn't step out of bounds,
or the tight end isn't a microfraction of an inch short of the goal line. Right? Like, remember when Reed makes the tap? Like, I get it. Like, you can go back and play what if.
Go back and look at all of that, but
it's not fair. But
it was just like a little example of everything in this Buccaneers game, where you have Mike Evans dropping wide open touchdowns, you have Cade Otton dropping walk-in touchdowns, right? But then it just all broke loose. The drops, they didn't matter.
Bro,
Baker Mayfield over 300 passing yards, and
James Bradbury was in coverage for one incompletion, and it was a Mike Evans drop, which would have been a touchdown. I think that was the most frustrating thing for me on defense. Like, bro, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin didn't kill you.
They didn't do anything.
They didn't do much.
Trey Palmer and whoever the other guy was.
Cade Otton and backup wide receivers were the one making third down completions and big plays and breaking tackles for touchdowns.
David Moore broke like 10 tackles on one play, man. Like, you can't make up this stuff, right? Like,
man. No, he is definitely not Teflon over here this morning.
No.
We'll get into him in a little bit. Is he the main problem? No, but he's definitely going to be held accountable on this stream show. No one's going to be on here calling him king and apologizing to him and telling him everything's okay, like I've seen on Twitter, and that they let him down.
King.
On Monday night. It's disgusting for me. It really is.
Like the Stan universe we live in,
Scott,
man.
you mentioned it. Like, yeah, this defense was atrocious, man. But they did. In the middle of the game, I texted you. I tweeted it out. Like, the defense is getting – I think they had 3 straight drives. 3. Yeah. Maybe just 2, but I think 3.
Yeah.
Where they got stops. And not only did the offense not help them out, not only did the offense give them 2 more points to make it a 2-possession game while the defense was getting stops, the offense couldn't even pick up third downs. Like, this is
couldn't even flip the field.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
They couldn't even flip the field.
Exactly. Tampa Bay gets to start at their own 30, 35, 40-yard line, drive after drive after drive, while we're being pinned when the defense is getting stops because they got good field position. If they have to punt, they pin us. We're not even picking up first downs, man. So we're punting from our own end zone, from our own 5, our own 10, and it's just repeat the cycle over and over and over again. Right?
Yeah.
And let's get to Jalen Hurts right now. And we'll circle back around to everything else because Nick Sirianni, biggest issue, biggest culprit of this game. Brian Johnson, right behind him. Matt Patricia, right behind him. James Bradbury, the defense. There's so many issues. I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts was even a top 3 to 5 issue. Maybe, I don't know. But Jalen Hurts, despite the injuries, despite missing his number 1 touchdown, his number 1 receiver, I understand that those are all valid excuses and reasons for a QB to maybe take a step back or struggle in this ballgame. Jalen Hurts looked like he's never seen a blitz before. See, everyone wants to throw all the blame and all the criticism on Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson, and it's deserved. Like, that is the most inept, ridiculous game plan I've ever seen a coaching staff come out with when everybody and their mother knows what's coming from Todd Bowles' defense. But you got the keys, dude. You're the $200+ million franchise quarterback. You can do what you want at the line of scrimmage for the most part. He's not sliding protections. He's not making adjustments himself. Even if he's not going to make an adjustment or slide a protection or bring a back down to help pick up a backer on a blitz, it's like he's still confused once he snaps the ball. I mean, Scotty, he just threw off his back foot and cowered from the hits 5 times. They showed all the replays over the course of the broadcast. 5 times.
Yeah.
You don't adjust one receiver's route and make him a hot. Like, here's the thing, right? Sirianni's dialing up all these go routes or curls on 3rd and 8 with a blitz coming. Jalen doesn't check to Smitty or check to Goddard in the slot and change his, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have control. And he changed nothing. He looked confused. He looked scared in the pocket the other night, man. And he wasn't being helped out. I know that, guys. But he still has to be held accountable. That's safety. That's inexcusable. That safety is 1,000% inexcusable. That's the game. Like, you all realize that, right? Were they going to win the game? No, Scotty, they were never going to win this game. But at that time, it was a 7-point game. You know what that is? 1 possession. Yeah. Later in the second half, the defense is finally building confidence and getting stops. And you picked up a safety from like our own 15-yard line, dude. Because you just wouldn't throw the ball out of bounds. I don't know if you recall this. There was one, he checked down the Gainwell on a 3rd down. Goddard was wide open. He continues to miss. I don't know. My whole point of this conversation was that he can't escape responsibility. He has to be held accountable. And my biggest fear, it's not anything that I, believe is true. It's just in the back of my mind now is, okay, a coaching change is easy. If that's what we declare is the biggest issue, and that's what hampered Jalen along with his injuries this year, and he can bounce right back with an offensive-minded coordinator or head coach, then okay. But if these question marks trickle further than the head coach or play caller, we got a problem. And I think that was my biggest concern coming away from this game, is he didn't quiet any of those questions.
Yeah.
Scotty, he made 2 good throws on Monday night. 2. Huh. Okay. Because that's good enough. I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, I definitely came out of this game with the same level of disappointment as you with Jalen Hurts, but I would say I didn't come out with the same concerns in Jalen Hurts. And the reason I say that is because I do believe that the coaching philosophy, the beliefs of this offense, I think they're all really bad. That's just the way I look at this team and what they were able to do, even at the times where they've been great. And that was last season, right? The Super Bowl run. We still complained about the same things mixed in there, right? Like the down times that were mixed in there, we complained about the same things with this offense. And then you can go back, obviously, to Sirianni's first year when he was play calling, and we complained about the same things. So I do think as the season goes on, bad decisions, lack of adjustments, I do think you can ruin your players for that season. I mean, you see how fast Josh Allen was able to switch the way he was playing once they switched offensive coordinators in Buffalo. So when I see stuff like that, it's up to Jalen. We know Jalen has a work ethic. We know Jalen has the intangibles. He needs to put the work in this offseason, stay out of the commercials, and get back.
And I don't think he's healthy either, Scotty. One carry for Jalen Hurts, which was the tush push on the goal line. Does that scream to you that knee's okay? Because that also hampers the offense, right? If Jalen Hurts cannot be Jalen Hurts like he was last year, that changes what you're capable of doing. And
it makes you wonder, man. I mean, you mentioned the lack of, solid throws and stepping up in the pocket. Like, if the fingers are in the back of your head, if you don't want to follow through in your throws because you're scared you might hit your fingers on a helmet or something, he just shouldn't have been out there, man. Like, that's the truth. Like, man. I'm not a Marcus Mariota guy by any means. It's not that I wanted to see him in this game, but if he could use his legs in this game, maybe that makes a difference. Like, I don't know. It does not matter at this point. I'm not going to sit here and go through that, but I agree. And ultimately, along with everything you said, not being willing to step up, take a hit in the chin, and deliver a throw. That was the biggest thing on the field that I was hating watching. It reminded me of, a few years ago in Nick Sirianni's first year when we played the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, and Jalen Hurts just looked like a deer in headlights when it came to pressure coming from the outside and him getting hit in the pocket. Whenever you see that look in his face, that's a concern, right? Like, and that's where this game took me. It took me back to, I guess, 2021 versus Dallas in Dallas. And, you see Hurts on the sideline basically sitting away from the team. He's not saying anything. He's not gathering people around him.
He got hyped up right before that safety, though. That defense got a sack, and Jalen showed some emotion. People were loving it, and then he took a safety.
It backs me up to, what the hell happened this season in that locker room? Where did Jalen Hurts with the gritties and the celebrations? Where did that stuff go? Because that was when we saw Jalen at his peak. That was when we saw Jalen being a leader on the team. And commanding the offense.
What?
At some point in this season, that all stopped, and he lost all of his energy. He lost all of his happiness, it felt, within playing the game. And that's what I saw on Sunday. It looked like a guy that had just had lost everything this season. Like, that's
I said before, man. To answer your question, I wish I had it like up on the screen with us. I would pull up him walking off the field at the Super Bowl with the Chiefs confetti falling down. Like, that's where it went. That's where it was lost. And it's like, and then you even go back to their 10th win to get to 10-1. He runs in the touchdown in overtime, sticks out the arms, crowds going nuts, embracing him. It's like, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And we never, ever even saw close to a resemblance of that guy for the rest of the season. Look, the last thing I'll say about Jalen Hurts is this. The only reason I bring up a little bit more of a concern for him moving forward than you do is not just because of this past Monday. Jalen Hurts has not looked good since that Buffalo Bills win. The interceptions against the Seahawks that lost them the game. How the offense looked against the Giants in Week 18. All of those things combined, it's like, okay, then you get to this point. Can he step up? Because, Scotty, listen, man, if the defense let up 32 points and we lost 32-28, we would not be having this conversation about Jalen Hurts and the offense right now.
Yeah.
Your unit just continued to struggle, and that at some point does have to fall back on the quarterback. However, let's get to the meat of the conversation. And let's get to the main culprit. In my opinion, I think you share the same sentiment as I do. In my opinion, the number one issue with this football team is the head coach, and it is Nick Sirianni. Brian Johnson is clueless. The fact that Brian Johnson is being interviewed for head coaching jobs across the league and their vacancies is the most mind-numbing thing I've ever heard of in my life. Even if it's Sirianni's offense, even if Sirianni steps in from time to time to intervene in play calling for a play here or there, Brian Johnson's still the one that ran the ball on the first 2 plays, saw it have success, and then not call it again. That's Brian Johnson. That's not Nick Sirianni. That's Brian Johnson. He's clueless.
Yeah.
Gone. Maybe he transitions back to a quarterback coach here if he doesn't get a head coaching gig. But he is not the team's offensive coordinator. Right.
The pass game coordinator, the assistant coach to the coach.
He is not this team's offensive coordinator come next year. I think that's clear and obvious from all the rumors we've been hearing.
Yeah.
Matt Patricia, Sean Desai. See you later. Gone. Rightfully so. But Nick Sirianni might survive this with a job. He's interviewing with Jeffrey Lurie and bringing his plan on what to do to fix the Eagles, hiring coordinators, etc. And I got to tell you, I hate it. And here's why. Let's just go back to what he continued to do wrong. Team comes in, looks as unprepared as they did. That's on the head coach. Team comes in, makes no adjustments from the Week 18 shellacking that Wink Martindale gave you. And we see the same thing on offense that we did in Week 18. That's on the head coach. We see that defensive effort, like guys are giving up. That's on the head coach. He even had the ball, Scotty, to tell the media, tackling is hard. What the fuck are you talking about? Tackling is hard. Excusing what James Bradbury did. Excusing Eli Ricks hiding behind a wide receiver with his back to him because he didn't want to make a play on Baker Mayfield on a 3rd down. He has no control of this locker room. And I don't care, man. I really don't. Jalen and Fletcher. And the other thing I don't like about him, like I get they're backing him and endorsing him, and I don't like how they're playing dumb. Both of them. What'd you say? Nick, going anywhere? You didn't know there's conversations about your head coach going somewhere when you finish the season 1-7 and you're all on social media, you're all on Twitter. You didn't have an inkling of an idea that he might be in jeopardy of losing his job because of how you guys are playing? Stop that. Cut that shit out right now. You had an idea, okay? It's the National Football League. This shit happens all the time. The last thing I will say as to why I hate the idea of him returning. Scotty, if his plan to bring to Jeffrey Lurie is these coordinators they can bring in, what the fuck does Nick Sirianni do? What is he? Is he a head coach in the league and because he can delegate well? Because he's a good guy? Because the players like him? That doesn't qualify for a head coaching job. He's not a defensive-minded guy. We know that. He has nothing to do with the defense. He was brought in as a thought that he was this, young, offensive-minded guy. He can't be around an NFL offense. That's clear. So why should he be the head coach? This question's been passed around. I saw, and I am not backing Nick Wright here, okay, from Fox Sports. Nick Wright asked a question, and I believe our friend Phil Stifle asked a question. If Nick Sirianni was fired today, would any of the teams with a head coaching vacancy hire him? And if the answer is no, why does he have a job here? I'm sorry, man. I get the three playoff appearances, the Super Bowl. He got his ass kicked in two of three playoff appearances in the wild card round. The first one, I get it. This was inexcusable. This was the breaking point for me. The lack of adjustments, the lack of preparation, the lack of accountability, the way this team looks to have given up on him. And you package all that up with, what does he do? I don't want him back, man. I'm sorry. I don't think this team will be fixed if he's back.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I lean towards the way you feel. Although I would say I'm closer to 50-50 on it. The big thing for me that puts me in between, I agree with everything you said about Nick this season and what has transpired. The big thing for me is really just the idea of starting over and starting a culture over and starting, the principles of the team and like building that trust again between the coach and the players. Like that's the part that makes me feel like, are we really in position to do that coming off a Super Bowl loss? Where if we can just right a few wrongs this offseason, could we get back to that, right? We were at 10-1 at one point this season. Could we get back to that 13-14 win team and get back to the postseason? So there's that side of the conversation where it's like he does have the resume. He does have the 3 seasons of playoff appearances. He does have the Super Bowl appearance. And there is examples around the league of guys who are just motivators and delegators as head coaches, and they have done it for quite a while in that sense. So there is a few guys around the league in that notion, but then you have the other side of the conversation where it says, do you just rip the Band-Aid off now and, get started on that new culture that you will just be kicking the can down the road for, maybe it's a season from now, maybe it's 2 seasons from now. Do you want to go through a whole other season next season of Nick Sirianni on the hot seat being questioned every single week, no matter what the results are?
Yes.
That's another part of it,
He
right?
will be questioned through training camp, bro.
Every week about this, right? Players, coaches, staff, they will be questioned about this each and every week. And, just God forbid you bring in an offensive coordinator with head coaching, what would you call it? Head coaching
abilities?
It's slipping my mind right now, but a prowess, right? That person could become the head coach.
Right.
Eric Bieniemy, for example, you bring him in as I'm not saying that's going to happen. You bring him in as offensive coordinator. There's a chance Nick Sirianni could get fired in the season.
Yes.
And that guy get moved ahead of him. You bring in Ron Rivera to run the defense or something. Riverboat Ron, right?
Right.
Maybe he comes in and he's interim head coach by mid-season if things don't go the way they're supposed to.
Correct.
So there is that other side of it. There is the side of obviously the offense that he put out on the field is disgusting. And the big thing for me, and the reason I say I'm closer to 50-50 than you is because I don't sit in the locker room with this guy. I don't know his relationships with these players.
Agreed.
I don't know his relationship with Howie. I don't know his relationship, how much control he has within the team. I don't know how much control he has of person. Like, I just don't. I have no idea, right? Like, I have no idea what Howie Roseman said to Nick Sirianni when he walked in that locker room after that game on Monday. But I strongly disagree with his offensive philosophies and beliefs.
And this is my biggest fear.
The lack of running the football. I strongly disagree with his pillars of offense.
I mean, his stubbornness.
I think something that didn't get talked about enough this season is, he's a player's coach, but is he too much of a player's coach? Like, is he enabling these guys? Are Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox highly praising this guy because they didn't have to practice that hard? Right? Like, is he an enabler? Is that the problem? Does Jalen want him and Brian Johnson back because Jalen can do whatever he wants?
What Jalen wants to do, right?
Right? Like, And that's where it leans me towards where
Yeah.
you are, right? And that's what points me to pointing to the door for Sirianni. There is the other side, man. There was a point where we did love this guy, right? And
I agree.
I do remember those times, and I
agree.
do remember why. And I do see the person, the person of Nick Sirianni. I see him as a person and not just the head coach figure, right? I do get it. But I can't waste time with this unit is the best way I would put it. While you don't want to mess up the culture, you don't want to mess up the trust of the team, you also don't want to ruin Jalen Hurts if he's already regressed from last season. You don't want to ruin him further, right?
AJ Brown's got
the
what,
rest of this team.
2 years left on his deal if he even wants to be here under Nick Sirianni. Smitty's coming up on what would need to be an extension. Goddard, Swift's probably out the door.
Back here? Why would DeAndre Swift want to sign back here? Dallas Goedert, when it's extension, why would he want to be part of this offense?
Yeah.
Why?
I think that my opinion of Nick Sirianni has kind of really changed over the last couple of days. This is a huge fear of mine. He can bring his plan to Jeffrey and Howie, and all three of them can go out and look for OCs and DCs, and Nick's going to have a say in it. And okay, great. And what happens when it's still Nick Sirianni's offense? And then what's going to happen? The owner or GM have to step in and tell him to, well, that's dysfunctional. Yeah. You said culture, and I think that's a very key word here. Because at a point in time, 8-9 weeks ago, I thought the Philadelphia Eagles had maybe the best culture in the entire National Football League. Yeah. From what he built year one with a rookie quarterback getting to the playoffs to making to the Super Bowl with that team that was so fun and you just loved every single guy on that roster to a 10-1 start this year. Thought they had one of the best cultures in the league. And then I watched what transpired over the last couple of weeks, 2 months. And I watch the dysfunction within this group, the locker room leaks, the arguments on the sideline, the play on the field that looks like guys, excuse me, have given up.
Yeah.
What culture is that? That's my problem. And if he's back, he will be questioned throughout the offseason, throughout minicamp, throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, and every week, every mistake, every loss is going to come down on Nick Sirianni, and I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to be part of the problem, because if I'm out on him right now and things go south week 1, week 2, and look like same old, I don't want to come on here and pile on and bring the issues on. Like, I don't, but it's, what else are we going to be able to do at that point? I think, Scotty, again, it has to do with culture and everything. And I know the league has changed, the times have changed, and other teams do this as well. But since Nick has been here, they practice less, they don't hit, they wear pads less, science, everything like that. Nutrition all plays a factor in what the Eagles do in the summer. And since he's been here, tackling's been an issue. Remember week 1 Detroit of last year? Yeah. Tackling's been an issue. Throughout against the Chiefs, tackling an issue. Similarities in the offense. Before and after Shane Steichen took over play calling and left for a head coaching job, it's the same offense as the first couple of weeks of 2021 when Nick Sirianni was in control. They didn't run the ball. The crowd was booing. You had to plead with him. Shane Steichen takes over, different look. He leaves, back to this mess. That's my problem. So my question becomes, what is Nick Sirianni?
Yeah.
How much of a factor did Shane Steichen play in that Super Bowl year? I saw a tweet last night. I'll throw this back to you because it perfectly sums up how I feel about Nick. Someone tweeted out, I like Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni seems like is probably a great guy. I have no confidence that Nick Sirianni can fix this football team. And that's how I feel about him. We dig the personality. We dig the guy himself. I don't think he can fix this football team. What I saw on Monday, sorry to keep ranting, what I saw on Monday and this collapse, mind you, what did you call this? The worst collapse you've seen as an Eagles fan. It's unforgivable to me. That's what it is.
I think that's fair. I think there is a world where I could see Sirianni leading this team back to a winning culture, I guess I could say. But I do think it would take a slice of humble pie. I think it would take him, understanding that he needs great coordinators around him, right? That he does have to delegate. And, maybe you just maybe if that's what Howie and Jeff Lurie are going to do, right? If they meet with Sirianni today and they decide we're taking him into next season, then you need to bring in veteran coordinators. It can't be a first-time offensive coordinator. It can't
push
be a
over Sirianni.
Yeah, it needs to be, a Jim Caldwell-esque type of hire, like not an Eric Bieniemy. I don't think that's going to be possible, but that type of hire that the Washington Commanders did last season with Ron Rivera, like bringing in a Ron Rivera for the defense to run that unit by himself, kind of like Jim Schwartz, right? Like give him the unit. You don't touch it. And I think that is something, if Sirianni is open to that, but then once again, to be fair, it brings up that conversation. What does he do? And then you're going to have turnover at the coordinator position. Maybe you have turnover at the coordinator positions anyway. I don't know. I don't know these days in the NFL. And the one last thing I will say that is in favor of Sirianni that he has going for him is that you could argue that it's not a great look for the Eagles to fire a head coach that took them to the Super Bowl. Right. You can argue optics. That's one thing that Sirianni has going for him as well. But I don't know. There's part of me, man, that heavily leans towards just ripping the Band-Aid off, get it over with now, and let's start this relationship between Hurts, the head coach, and whoever else.
Right. And now Howie, we're gonna get to Howie in a second too, because Howie's defense is not blameless that he put together. And Howie, you have to nail this, right? It was Doug. Doug wins the Super Bowl, but then Doug was quickly canned after not far after the Super Bowl. It was Nick, 3 years possibly canned. You have to get this right if you're Howie Roseman.
Yeah, and that's actually a great point, because if you fire Nick, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the next hire right. Like everybody wants Ben Johnson, everybody wants to get this right. Bobby Slowik from down in Houston. These would be first-time head coaches. Yeah. Maybe they are successful, maybe they are not. Right? Ben Johnson is under Dan Campbell. He's a great leader, obviously, by what we see in his press conferences and the way his team's loyal to him. Is Ben Johnson Dan Campbell? Like, we don't know that. Like, you know what I mean? We don't know that he's going to be able to captivate a room. But, man, you talk about Howie, and in the defense is obvious. Is there an argument that, maybe you should have brought back like an Isaac Seumalo, like to keep that offensive line intact? Because they've been disconnected.
Scotty, we thought that he knocked this offseason out of the park.
Yeah.
And I think in a sense, he had a very good on paper offseason. I don't think guys were used correctly, which is something else I want to bring up in a second.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when the results are the results and guys look like they have, Howie technically had a terrible offseason.
You couldn't bring back TJ or Kaiser?
I mean, we brought back Slay and Bradbury, which again, hindsight's 2020. I thought we were okay with it. We loved it at the time that you were able to bring back both.
Bradbury was a mistake though, hindsight.
Right. In hindsight. But you bring back both of those, and CJ Gardner-Johnson's playing in the divisional round.
Yeah.
Helping lead a Lions defense that struggles at times, and then he comes on and they look like a better unit. Yeah. So, like you said, Kaiser White, I mean, again, and injuries matter, but Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham are starting a playoff game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Howie Roseman definitely deserves criticism. But, like I said,
I think Howie gets a pass from the fan base and from Philadelphia because we just know that he's not going to get fired. Like, I think it's kind
That's
of
true.
turned into that
Right.
feeling for me
Right.
to
There's
where
just no point in the conversation.
there's no point in the conversation because he's
Right.
not going to get fired. Not
Right.
right now, at
But
least.
but listen, man, over the last 2 years, right, and you look at the draft classes and you look at the trades and the free agents, man, I mean,
I wouldn't want to fire him
hell
personally.
no. I
Yeah,
mean, Scotty,
not a
look at this is what I was gonna wrap up by saying with the Nick Sirianni conversation.
yeah,
The defense, sure. Howie doesn't value safety, doesn't value linebacker. Maybe that philosophy definitely needs to change. Okay.
yeah.
Would you rather have? I mean, again, hindsight's 2020. I'm not trying to give up on Jordan Davis, but would you rather have Kyle Hamilton or Jordan Davis?
Yeah,
I'd
Kyle
rather have
Hamilton.
Kyle Hamilton. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, but this offense, that's the other thing for me, man. How do you fuck that up?
yeah.
You had an MVP caliber quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift, and you somehow found a way, Scotty, to practically get the least out of each and every one of those guys. At least over the last 2 months, he has.
Yeah.
Like A.J. Brown had a career first half of the season, disappeared in the second half because of how he's being used. DeAndre Swift somehow got over 1,000 yards, made a Pro Bowl. No
Career
thanks to
low.
how they used him.
Career low in receiving, though, right? And we heard how great of a receiver he was coming into the season. And
Dallas
career low.
Goedert should not want to be a Philadelphia Eagle anymore for how he was
Yeah,
utilized.
if I was Goddard, man, I know maybe I'm a little biased to Goddard, but between Hurts
look at the
and
Super Bowl
Sirianni and
performance.
the lack of the use of the middle of the field, I would not come back.
Hell no.
I know his contract's not up. He's not a free agent by any means, but like when that time comes, yeah, I'm cool in the squad.
I don't know how you have all that talent and you found a way to make this unit, Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni involved, look so incapable of moving the ball and scoring points. I mean, let's just look around the league, okay? Let's look around the league, right? You have the Buffalo Bills. They're a potent offense at the moment, right? You're Josh Allen under center. Okay. James Cook's been a huge bright spot for them. Cool, right? He's not a top 10 running back probably yet, right? So you got James Cook. Stephon Diggs hasn't scored since November. So it's not, you have Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown. You give the edge to Diggs, but it's very close. And then what do you got? Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid's been a good draft pick, and Dawson Knox. Now, is that talent better than the talent on the Eagles offense? No, I wouldn't pick on paper the talent. No, I wouldn't say so. The Detroit Lions, one of the best offenses in the NFL. David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not better than A.J. Brown. Sam Laporta's been a very good rookie. Jahmyr Gibbs been a very good rookie. And then I'm drawing a blank on their other receivers for whatever reason.
Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Talent on paper. Are the Lions better than the Eagles? Jared Goff versus Jalen Hurts? No, I wouldn't say so.
No.
And somehow, one offense is atop the league, and ours scored 9 points in a playoff game.
Yeah, it is. It is funny, man. It's funny as you were going through those, I was thinking of other comparisons of just the other side of it, right? Which is you have the offensive mastermind and like a Mike McDaniel, or you could even say Mike McCarthy. Look at the way he had, CeeDee Lamb's numbers out of this world, Dak's numbers out of this world, and then end up right in the same boat. You know what I mean? Like you can have like the offensive mastermind that we're dreaming of here, and the Cowboys were out in the first round.
True.
And then who was the other team I just mentioned there? But they were out in the first round.
I think that's fair. There's similarities between.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's funny on both ends of the scale.
On the other side of things, you could have a rookie quarterback, a defensive-minded head coach, not a good running game,
Yeah.
And rookies across the board, Dalton Schultz, obviously not a rookie, but Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and CJ Stroud, and that offense is potent.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco stepped into a Browns offense that had David Njoku and Amari Cooper and no Nick Chubb and felt like he was scoring 30 a week.
Yeah.
And here we are doing this nonsense.
Yeah.
I just don't know. That's my thing. I just don't know how we've come so far in the opposite direction, swung so far that they messed things up this bad. And that's why it's unforgivable for me, man. And I think kind of to wrap up the conversation here, at least for, my part of things, is you said on the pregame show, and you said it to open the show, the reason you were happy that it was coming to this point was you were going to find out what this team was. And the fact that we got that result, that answer, brought me to my reasoning behind Nick Sirianni being gone. What's that tell you? That they looked like that in a playoff game. Not prepared. No adjustments. Missed tackles. Running into each other. By the way, I'm going all over the place here, but I don't know about you. We were waiting for him to come back. Avonte Maddox stinks. I don't know how many times we have to go through this. He's always injured, and when he comes back, he's somehow one of the guys constantly trailing on a pass catcher and having to make a tackle or giving up a touchdown. Yeah. Avonte, and I get it. He was playing like a safety mix in this game, but it's not just this week. He was getting beat against the Giants. I don't know. I don't like Avonte Maddox anymore either, man.
I think, Avonte is interesting because it's like one of those situations where it would be ideal if he just doesn't come back from injury and get thrown into a fire. Sure. You know what I mean? A fire pit of like a horrible.
Sure. I feel like I think the memories just came back of him trailing in coverage even pre-injury.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's as good as we hype him up to be.
It might be time to move on from him. I mean, there's so many holes. I just don't.
That's my question for the offseason, Scotty. The offense, for the most part, right? Like, if Kelsey's retired, for everybody out there that thinks that the New Heights clip means he's not retiring, no, he's retiring. He's retired. He just wants to say it on his terms when he's ready to say it. Okay. Kelsey's gone. You got to replace him. Running back, you got to figure out, right? I'm not going into the season with Kenneth Gainwell as my starting running back. But everybody else is pretty much tightened up, right? The rest of the line, the receiving core, Goddard's still here, et cetera, Jalen. So you don't have much work to do on offense. Obviously, a third wide receiver maybe and a running back. But on defense, is it even possible to rebuild the way we need to be built in an offseason through the draft and free agency and via trade? I mean, if you think about it, right? All of the corners, besides Slay, I guess, should not play. I mean, Maddox, I'm sure Maddox and Slay, we like Ringo, whatever. You got to add depth in the corner position.
Got Isaiah Rodgers returning next year from his
right from the Colts. So corners, you probably need work done.
Yeah, you need to bring in like one starting corner, and you need to bring in somebody younger. Depth. You need to bring in some youth.
I agree. Linebacker.
Yeah.
You need 4 new linebackers, essentially.
Yeah.
Safeties. Is Byard under contract? Even if he is, I mean, that trade looks like a disaster, at least under this coordinator. Yeah. Byard, if he's not on a contract, he's gone. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool on Byard, man.
Byard's gone.
Cool on him.
Reed, we talked ourselves into Reed. I don't think Reed Blankenship is I mean, he's going to start probably. I don't think Reed Blankenship is like a pillar of a defense or a secondary.
Yeah.
And then up front, Fletch is probably gone. BG wants to come back for a farewell tour. I'm sure Howie will bring him back on the cheap to bring him back. But, like, you get my point? Like, there's probably, like, double-digit players assets or close to it that they have to bring in for depth and starting roles.
It's interesting, man. I think one, you remove Bradbury from the equation, and I
I
think
think
that
so.
will help
But
you a
what does
little
that
bit.
do for the
But
cap? I saw a tweet that
I know
it kills them
he's
to cut him.
he's a ton of dead money, man. That was probably Howie's biggest mistake. And like you said, hindsight is always 2020. We supported that move at the time. Yeah, I think you have to consider, man, that defensive line. I'm just looking at Josh Sweat and I'm thinking, like, do you trade him and just try to get some money back, right? Like, he's valuable, but is he that good? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not pounding the table trade Josh Sweat. Like, I think he's one of the least
I'll
of the
tell you
problems.
what,
But
whoever the new DC is, if they're not going to use him correctly,
yeah,
I'll just trade Hassan Reddick right now. I mean, if he's going to be used to drop in the coverage, you might as well just get rid of him.
yeah. I mean, I would consider looking into it, man, just to cut corners and save some money when your defensive line just wasn't as impactful as you needed it to be anyways. Maybe you trade a Josh Sweat, or I wouldn't want to trade Hassan Reddick, but
No.
if you
I'm
go
saying,
down
but
that
my point
avenue,
is, like, if someone's going to use
Nolan
him like
Smith
Matt
is
Patricia
here.
used him, what's the point of him being on? What's the point of having him if you're
Nolan
not going to
Smith is
utilize him?
here, and he did show a few signs down the stretch, right? He was one of the only sparks in this Bucs game where he got a sack. So yeah, I think you have to explore all of those options. And you just have to hope that guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter just get better, right? Like,
Yeah.
become solidified starters in the
Let me
NFL.
ask you that. I know we're backtracking here back to this Bucs game. How big? Like, it was a big letdown for me, at least. I don't know if you felt the same way. Defensively, at least, on the line, making plays, ending drives for us. It wasn't the youth.
Yeah.
I mean, Milton Williams is young. He had a third down sack. It was a good play. But, like, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis were invisible almost
Yeah.
in this game. The only time I saw Jalen Carter is when Rashad White ate us up for 8 or 9 yards, and then Carter was in his face barking at him. Good job, bud. Gotta talk some more shit when you're getting your teeth kicked in. But Fletcher Cox was making plays. BG a little bit. Milton Williams.
That's one thing I would say about this defense that I would like to see them address is, like, not only obviously talent level, but they need some type of leadership. Like, I get it, like the Jalen Carter talk, but I think you need guys to be talking out there. Like, you need guys to set the fucking tone, and they just don't have anyone. Like, I thought Kevin Byard could be that guy you bring in to set the tone from the safety position. That was a big whiff. He's a good dude. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't like his personality for a defensive leader. Like, personally, he just is very, like, monotone, like, not very captivating. Whereas I would have loved Budda Baker. I think he would have been, like, the change in the secondary that you need. But I would love for them to bring in some boisterous guys like CGJ. Just talk a little shit, man. Like, like, what goes along with shit talking is confidence within yourself. James Bradbury don't talk shit, right? Like, he don't talk shit. Slay is a goofy motherfucker, but he doesn't talk shit.
Right.
He praises other players, actually. He hypes them up.
There's no I don't know. There's no violence, right, behind those words.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want a bunch of guys that are going to talk shit after they get ran through, like Jalen Carter. I just want guys that will talk some shit and get into guys' heads.
Set a tone.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, Scotty, basically when the season changed and what the hell? What happened before the Eagles 49ers game?
Bradbury got ran through.
He got punked. And nobody, including himself, stood up for their teammate.
Yeah, that's
nobody.
Like, it's one thing for him to not stand up for himself, but nobody has his back.
Nobody. DeAndre Swift gets laid out at the end of the game in a blowout.
Yeah.
Nobody comes to his defense.
You know what surprised me from the closeout press conferences? DeAndre Swift was asked what he liked about, like, being in this Eagles, or what he loved about being part of this Eagles team. And he said everything. Like, how, man? Like, I really don't understand. Maybe he liked, the lack of usage to preserve his body. Like, maybe that's something in his mind that he enjoyed that. But like, how you can exit that Bucs game, like
I
not
gotta be
touching
honest
the
with you, man.
football.
I take nothing away from these exit interviews from these players. Like everyone, like that's coming out, the Fletcher interview and the Kelsey, a shining endorsement of their head coach. What the hell do you think they're going to say? He's still the head coach as of today. Do you think they're going to come out and throw him under the bus to the media and talk, I don't know what the future holds, or this is like, seriously, man, do you think that Jalen Hurts is going to come out and basically question Nick Sirianni's ability to coach his team when he's still the head coach of this football team? Because if you do that as a player and he's not fired, that's going to be fun next season.
Right.
No one's going to come out and not back up the coach. Like, I don't know what you like, guys. We just went through this with the Sixers. Now, whether he means it or not, nobody knows. But Joel Embiid endorsed Doc Rivers. Do we truly believe that Joel Embiid wanted Doc Rivers back, or do you think he's pretty happy that he has Nick Nurse in the building right now?
I think it's
guys
like
aren't just going to come out unless they're James Harden and are forcing a trade.
They don't know what they like until they have it, and that's a big thing there. And like I said, I think one of the biggest indictments on Nick Sirianni, from my perspective, is him as an enabler, and that's what worries me, man. Like the whole, AJ Brown comes out and shares that Jalen Hurts and he made that change at the line, right at the end of that Seattle game. Why did Nick Sirianni cover up for it? Like, there, don't get me wrong, there's a balance to it, right? There's the side where he's protecting his players. That's great on him as a coach. It builds the trust in their relationship between them. But then there's the other side of it where you do need to hold Jalen Hurts accountable in public in order to get the point across.
Absolutely.
And so there's somewhere where it's a very fine line, right? And there's somewhere where he's not abiding by the line.
And you asked this as well. Why wasn't AJ Brown on the sideline?
Yeah.
Why did AJ Brown not travel with the Philadelphia Eagles?
The only answer that I can, and this is me guessing, right? This is me strictly guessing. I'm not a doctor. From what we've heard about Joel Embiid, whenever he's had his knee injuries and traveling, going up in an airplane up high in the sky, elevating the knee can increase the swelling. That's the only benefit of doubt that I will give AJ Brown in that case.
I mean, I was just saying, and listen, I'm not one of those people
I don't know if that's true. I don't know the science behind it.
Right. I'm only bringing it up because I'm not one of those people that were bitching and complaining that he was at the boxing event, that he was at the fight on Friday night. But like my point was like, bro, it's not like you're at home or rehabbing, because like you're in Atlantic City on a Friday night. So why couldn't you have been in Florida? But if that's the facts or science behind it, then it's whatever. But deleted all his Eagles stuff on Instagram, deleted his Twitter. Then didn't show for the game was weird to me. The last thing, I have so much running through my mind here, this team, but just to come back on Sirianni, man. Look, we know that winning cures all and covers up, possibly poor relationships or issues guys might have with each other. So I understand. And players like to come out, and former players like to come out in the media and say, this thing is normal. You guys don't understand this. People don't understand this. When guys and players get on each other on the sideline publicly. Yeah. Here and there, it's normal, I'd say. Right, Scotty?
Yeah.
But throughout this year, we have seen Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown arguing. We have seen Dallas Goedert lashing out at Jalen Hurts on Monday night. We have seen Jason Kelce screaming at Nick Sirianni. We have seen Devontae Smith and Hassan Reddick yelling at Nick Sirianni and showing clear frustration a few weeks ago against the Giants on Christmas. That's not normal. That's dysfunction. Yeah, a receiver and quarterback going back and forth, the head coach and quarterback having some words on a sideline after a turnover or something. That's normal. 7 or 8 different examples of different players on both sides of the ball bickering with the head coach and quarterback throughout the course of games is not normal. It's just not.
Let me ask you this. Do you give any weight to coming off of like a Super Bowl, like a hangover? Like, do you give any weight to that?
No, because I mean, they asked Jordan Mailata this yesterday, and Jordan Mailata was like, "That's bullshit. Like, no one in this lot, blah blah blah." But also, you don't start 10-1 off a Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah.
If there was a Super Bowl hangover or coming off that loss and guys, blah blah blah, they might have started 5-3 or 3-2, something like that.
I guess
You went 10-1, and then had this happen.
The reason I asked that is because obviously it could just be a dysfunctional locker room. It also could just be guys on complete edge all season, right? Like, and like what I've been talking about with Jalen Hurts, like where did the fun go in playing football, right? And
Sure.
the team and the celebrations and being together and showing that camaraderie. It's almost like everybody was just on edge this season.
Sure.
Like, yeah, it started out great. You didn't make as many mistakes in the beginning. And so things were okay, 10-1. Because we have to remember, like 10-1, there were still a lot of question marks even at that point.
Sure.
Right? As far as things that have transpired, the uptick
For sure,
in
but I just
turnovers.
can't. How the fuck did you beat the Dolphins, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Bills basically consecutively? How did you do that? How did this group accomplish that? I don't understand. I never will.
Yeah, I don't know. None of it makes sense, honestly. None of it makes sense.
But shout out to TR.
It's the most frustrating part.
The Sixers and Flyers for carrying Philadelphia sports. That's right. Starting very soon, Friday morning. Obviously, Sixers tomorrow morning. Sixers off again tonight. They play tomorrow night. Scotty and I will be talking about that huge, unbelievable performance down at the center against the defending NBA champions, Jokic versus Embiid. What a win for the Sixers the other night, dude. We're going to talk about it, talk about this Sixers team and how much fun they've been. And going to say it now, we're going to have to start watching some puck, dude, from time to time and coming on and talking about it a little bit. Don't blame us if they start losing once we start watching. If you guys want to talk about it, I got to watch a little bit more. It's been a difficult time, all right? But I think, unless Scotty has anything else to get off his chest here about this Eagles team, that is going to do it for this morning show.
Yeah, I'm good, man. Sayonara.
Got that hour out.
Yeah.
Got that vent session out.
Move on.
And maybe, who knows, maybe today, tomorrow, over the weekend, the Eagles come to a decision. They're going to have to, right? This is not something that's going to drag on, right? He's either going to be gone or the report's going to come out that he's staying and they're going to look for coordinators together. And we're going to know, and then we can discuss it from there. And if that's the right or wrong thing to do, how we feel about it, etc. But tomorrow morning, come back to this channel, guys. If you're new to the channel, if you want to be interactive throughout the show, make sure to smash that subscribe button. The YouTube channel is the best spot to be interactive with us, better than Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, all of those sources. But for myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your Thursday.